Joining me on the program now, former MP Tanya Unkovich. Tanya, kia ora. Thanks for your time today.
Good morning, Andrew. It's always my pleasure.
Now, I know that you were following the inquiry very, very closely, and a lot of people going, hey, wouldn't it be good that we'll have people like Chris Hipkins and Jacinda Ardern and Ayesha Verrall and Grant Robertson, that these people will have their day in court. Some people saw it, that they will have their comeuppance. And now, for some people, they're saying, well, it's not fair that they're not being held accountable in this regard. What's your response? How are you feeling in regard to this, Tanya?
Well, like many others, I'm disappointed. I'm not surprised personally because it was a non-adversarial approach, this commission. And so people are angry, but I do want to remind them that that was part of the actual terms of reference, which I know it's easy to forget. And so many people, all of us, we want to hear from them, which is why I'm not surprised. So how am I feeling? Look, I am disappointed, but not surprised.
I think there's different cases. There are, for example, Grant Robertson, Jacinda Ardern no longer in Parliament. Of course, to an extent, they've moved on. Having said that, they were the Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister during this period of time. Some people would say accountability. For Chris Hipkins and Ayesha Verrall, they're still in Parliament. They're still public servants. This is a public inquiry, perhaps a higher standard for them to not be accountable in this regard. Yes, they don't have to, but it's not a good look particularly from the former COVID minister to not turn up to the COVID inquiry.
No, it is not a good look, and it's not the honourable thing to do. I mean, that's why they've got honourable at the front of their titles. It's not the honourable thing to do. They have to stand up and speak to the people.
Yeah.
They have to be leaders, show up as leaders. That's why they were elected. And so it is a huge disappointment that they're not doing that. It's not being true to the people who you served at that time, and some of them can continue to serve. So I agree, it is not an honourable thing to do. The right thing to do was to front up for the inquiry. I mean, it's not as if there was a room full of people there. I think if you watch the first week of the inquiry, it was just the commissioners and who was being interviewed. So that's not that scary to do. I mean, if you can show up in the chamber every day and fight the way you do, you could have done this as well. So I'm asking the question, what's the real reason?
Yeah, and certainly we've seen some feisty stuff happening in Parliament this week. I'm sure you're not missing the place in that regard. But is there something about, I suppose, the human psychology of this, that particularly if we feel hurt, and a lot of people hurt by what happened during the COVID years, that we want somebody else to be hurt before we can heal? We need to put somebody in the stocks so that we can throw tomatoes and abuse at them. And this is a natural human reaction, but not necessarily a healthy one, Tanya.
Look, I agree. There's probably some people out there whose anger is just with them non-stop, that the only way to process that is to project that anger onto someone else. And I'm not saying that's wrong at all. Yeah. But what I'm also thinking is that people actually need to be heard. So by not fronting up, those who are either injured, have lost their home and income and all that, they are once again being re-traumatized because they're not being heard, and in some cases still not believed. So that is why the anger has been triggered up for so many. The hurt, I mean, what lies underneath anger, we all know, is deep sadness and grief. It's just risen up again. People are upset because once again they're being forgotten and shunned, and rightly so for them being upset.
This was in some ways the purpose of the COVID-19 inquiry, that this would be an opportunity to speak some truth, for people to have their story heard, to be able to go back to revisit some of that hurt as a process of being able to heal and move forward. Now that this aspect of it is missing, will that impact the people's ability to move forward? And how do we get beyond it, do you think, Tanya?
Look, it may impact them because it was traumatic for them preparing their submissions anyway. It was traumatic for them preparing for those who spoke publicly in the public inquiry. So the whole process has been traumatic. They've had a bit of reprieve to be able to now relax and go, finally, we've had our say. Now we will hear their response.
Yeah.
And to actually have that door closed on them is once again reigniting that anger. And look, how do we, I think you asked the question, how do we move
How do we
forward?
move forward? Yeah.
Yeah, how do we move forward? Well, part of me doesn't even like saying move forward because it's, in a way, it's somehow ignoring what's there,
Yeah.
but it isn't as well. We need to find a way to live differently. And I did a post this morning about that and some of my own grief around this with mum and dad.
Yeah.
I had to make the intentional decision that I wasn't going to let this trauma change the rest of my life. I needed to make a decision and change the trajectory of my life. I could have gone down a path of suffering, or I could have said, Tanya, make some meaning out of this. Now, this is easy for me to say because my health hasn't been harmed from this. I haven't lost my home and income and all that. So for those people, they really do need tools, strategies in order to be able to get on with life again. So there is so much there that needs to be unpacked. Again, we have to support each other, and all this business about a team of 5 million, this is what this inquiry was about, bringing us together so that we can somehow move on and heal. And, I don't think there would have been anything wrong in some of those leaders saying, hey, I'm sorry, we may have made a mistake here.
Yeah, that would have certainly helped in the healing process in that regard. But hey, the situation is as it is, and I know that there'll be people listening and connecting with this now who are still in that place that they are hurt. And I think sometimes in these circumstances, when we are hurt, we need to find somebody to blame. We need to have a figurehead to pour out our rage on. And for some people, these are the individuals who haven't turned up, which I suppose it feels, I think, for some people like we were going to have our day in court, and then the person that was being accused, they did some sort of plea bargaining deal, and they got off scot-free. I'm not saying that's how it is. It's not a legal proceeding, but that's how it may feel like for some people who are still. It's not just something that happened back in the day. They're still dealing with the consequences of what happened during this period of time.
Oh, they absolutely are. All New Zealanders are. It's not only the mandates, the lockdowns, but now we're having a report on how much money was spent.
Yep.
So this commission was about key decisions by the key decision makers. So now that we know what those decisions were and the consequences of it, 66 billion plus, we need to know, why did you do that? Specifically, why did you allocate money here? Why did you allocate money there? Why did you do that when it's got nothing to do with COVID? So those are some of the answers that we need, because it is our children and our grandchildren who are going to be paying for this. It's why New Zealand is nearly broke. So that's one side of it. We need to hear that. So and also not to mention the lockdowns, the grief, the unresolved grief that still sits with people who haven't been able to say goodbye to their loved ones. They are still stuck in trauma and they need help. But firstly, they need acknowledgement. They need to be heard and believed and listened to, and also those people who have been harmed by the vaccine.
Just finally on this one, Tanya, there will be people listening to this who were hurt but didn't acknowledge it, perhaps. They just thought, oh, well, look, everybody's suffering, I'll just do my bit, and they just got on with it. And they've never talked about it, they've never acknowledged the harm, the burden that they've been carrying for these last 5 years or so. What would your advice be to somebody who's in that space? Yes, they were hurt, they've just never talked about it.
I invite them to lift the lid, to get support, even if it is a friend, and a trusted friend, a trusted advisor who you can openly share everything that is buried, because you don't want to keep that buried. It manifests in other ways, whether it be mental illness, addiction, relationships broken. It will manifest in ill health. So I invite you to do that and to make a decision to somehow find joy in your life again, to find meaning and purpose. Because what's the alternative?
Yeah.
To have a life of suffering. And that is the message I get out to people there. It's okay to say that you're not okay. I encourage you to get help. There are many who are struggling today. Like today, they're really struggling. So I'm encouraging you to help each other on this.
And find a pathway back to joy again. Such wonderful insight in that regard. Tanya, thank you for what you bring to this space. Thank you for your insight, your wisdom. Thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.